I've got this washing line in front of my workshop. Trouble is, next year when I build the new workshop, it's going to be in the middle of the workshop. So I could really use a clothes area. I'm just going to use some construction timber, some 3x2s. So first I work out how tall I want the area to be. Then I'm going to get it marked out and I'm just going to cut the pieces down to size using a Japanese pull saw. Now, I don't want the legs to be this chunky, and this wood has these rounded off corners. So I'm going to raise the blade on the table saw just above the thickness of the wood, and then first I'm going to rip off those rounded edges on one side. With that done, I can now set up the fence to rip these down into strips. I'm going to go for bits 22mm wide, so I can get a couple out of each piece. Now, I know I've just removed the round over because I didn't like it, but now I'm going to add another one, and that's on the ends. So I've got a cookie cutter that I can just draw around and mark it out. Then I can use the pull saw again to remove most of the excess wood. To remove the rest, I'm just going to use a 40 grit paper in the sander to go down to my line. Now I want the second leg to be exactly the same, so I clamp the first one on top of it, and then I can use the first one as a template, sand them together so I get them perfectly the same. Now that's one pair of legs done. Now I want the second pair to be shorter so they'll nest inside the first pair. I get them cut down and rounded over the same as the first pair. That's 4 legs done, and they're going to go together to form an A-frame, but I need to join the pairs together, and I'm going to use some dowel for that. I'm going to need to drill through where I want the dowels to go, so I mark out the position on the end of all 4 legs. I'm using a dowel I already had that's 18mm, but I did have to buy a new bit, and I tend to go for these Bosch ones because I think they cut really well. Now the plan is for the dowels to keep the legs evenly spaced, but the washing is actually going to hang off some cord, so I need some holes for the cord to go through. So I mark out the centre on the sides of the legs, and then I'm going to mark out some spaced holes. I'm going for 20 centimetres apart. This is some nylon parachute cord I'm using. I'll leave a link to it below, and I'm going to drill a 5mm hole and use this Gator drill guide. Again, that'll be on the tools I use page, so the holes are perfectly straight through the wood. With the holes drilled in the first one, I can then use that as a template to copy the holes onto the second one. And with the first pair done, I do exactly the same on the second pair of legs. To tidy up the holes a bit, I'm just going to use this countersinking bit, and I just think it makes it look a little smarter and will probably make it easier to thread the rope through. I spent all that time removing the round over. Now I'd quite like to add one again. So I take my smallest round over bit, get it put in my Bosch 12-volt router, and get the pieces clamped up into the vise. I add a round over to both sides on all 4 legs, and then I sand to 120 grit. I start off by cutting the dowels for the outer legs. Now they're going to be 60 centimetres apart, so I get a couple of pieces cut at that, and I'm going to put them in using some wedges. So I cut a slot in the end of the dowels going in a 90-degree angle to the grain. Then I can get some glue on the dowel, pushed into the holes and tapped into place. Off camera, I'm afraid, I went to the bandsaw and cut some wedges. I cut them out of some oak, so it's going to be a nice contrasting colour because I quite like the look of a wedged tenon. I get some glue on them and then they just get tapped into place. I cut some dowels a bit shorter for the inner legs and did the same thing. When it all had a chance to dry, I could come back, trim those wedges flush and then give them a sand down. Now to join the two frames together. So I get one of the longer dowels put through the inner frame first. It gets tapped through the holes with no glue and it's going to stick out from either end. I can now get some glue put on the ends of the dowels and get the larger frame moved into place and get the dowel poked through the holes of those. It needs tapping down into place and then I can get some wedges in exactly the same as before. Again, when it's dry, I can come back, trim off those wedges and give it a sand down. So that's really the woodworking portion of the build done. A nice simple A-frame that folds in on itself. Now to get some finish, so I've got some of this polyvine wood oil. I'm just going to pour some out and then get it brushed on and leave it to dry. I really like how the wedge dowels look when you get the oil on them. When the oil is dry, I can now look at getting this cord installed. So I get it poked into the top hole going through the front, and then I can get it knotted at the back and pulled tight. Then it can go back through the hole at the same level, through the front, pulled tight again. Then it comes out of the next one, across, down, along, down. You get the idea. Until I get to the bottom, I can get it tied off, and then I do exactly the same thing on the other side. At the bottom, I can add one more bit of cord to stop the legs splaying, and then I can go around, trim off any excess, and I just melt the ends with a lighter. So there you go, a really simple little clothes area. Nice A-frame that folds in on itself. So you might have thought, why did I not put the cords through the sides rather than the ends? Well, if they went through the sides, it wouldn't fold up so well. But I nearly did that to start with. So thanks for watching. Thanks to my patrons, and please subscribe for more videos.